There should be nobody who is opposed to the idea of being against Nazis.
It's accusing Trump supporters of being Nazis. I can't think why they would ever think that anybody who was a Nazi would ever want to vote for somebody like Donald Trump.
Why is there a controversy around this? Why in 2017 is there even a group of people that are defending the actions of Nazis and neo-Nazis?
We don't feel it's a reach for us to say Nazis are bad and un-American.
Make America Nazi-free again.
Make America Nazi-free again.
Make America Nazi-free again.
Make America Nazi-free again.
And as everybody would expect, the internet exploded with support at this really obviously great statement.
The kind of person who gets angry at that isn't somebody that a lot of people follow.
And apparently this hashtag is controversial.
Why is this a controversy? I just don't understand.
Okay, are we talking about Trump here?
No, we're talking about Nazis.
In 2017, a game I had been anticipating for a long time was finally released. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Released on October 27th, The New Colossus was a follow-up to Wolfenstein: The New Order, which was a very successful 2014 reboot of the franchise developed by Machine Games and published by Bethesda. I was going to buy The New Colossus no matter what, but that 2017 E3 reveal featuring the live-action dog whistle spot had me super excited. Bethesda kept up the live-action marketing campaign with the German Or Else trailer in July and the Uberman to Uber Hero trailer in late August. The response to these trailers was generally positive. It seemed like people appreciated the creative angle Bethesda was taking with them. But once October hit, and all the cringy Jack Skellington Halloween decorations were being put up around America, the tone of Wolfenstein's marketing took a turn. Rather than continuing the trend of tongue-in-cheek parodies of 1950s Americana, Bethesda chose to strike a different tone. On October 5th, 2017, the official Wolfenstein Twitter account posted this. Nazi soldiers marching in a parade, a cool guitar riff, Not My America appearing on screen, and a concise caption. Make America Nazi-free again. Hashtag no more Nazis. Seems like something everyone could rally around, right? Saying Nazis are bad is possibly the least controversial belief anyone could hold, and since the game is all about taking our beautiful country back from the Nazis, then heck yeah, we should make America Nazi-free again. Right, guys? Right? This was actually an incredibly controversial ad. Yes, you heard me right. The ad saying that Nazis don't belong in America became the subject of many a Reddit thread, and at least one GameFAQ thread. In 2017, I was a junior in college, minoring in political science. The 2016 election was my first time voting, and I became completely fascinated by the world of American politics. The fact that there is a political controversy surrounding a video game that I was excited to play was like my Super Bowl. It was like prompting ChatGPT to create content specifically catered to me. I'd find myself totally knee-deep in watching this mess unfold. My belief then, and my belief going into the creation of this video, was that if you were offended by this ad, it was a complete and utter self-report. The phrase, "a hit dog will holler," couldn't be more fitting. But my intention with creating this video was to basically challenge that belief. Could I find any opposing views that seemed credible enough and had enough substance to change my view? The answer I've arrived at after doing some actual legitimate research is an emphatic no. Nope. Let me explain. The general consensus from the detractors was that Bethesda wasn't speaking to Nazis, but rather Americans who had voted for Donald Trump. By hijacking Trump's infamous campaign slogan, they were intentionally targeting conservatives and painting them as white supremacists. I've always felt that people who got upset at the MAGA parody were basically crying wolf. It's not as common now, but starting in 2015 when Trump first announced his candidacy, there were Make America Great Again parodies everywhere, man, because you have to remember people took Trump's run for president as a joke right up until election day.
All I want to say is that anybody, well, from the Democratic side of the fence who thinks that, who's terrified of the possibility of President Trump, better vote, better get active, better get involved, because this man has got some momentum, and we better be ready for the fact that he might be leading the Republican ticket.
Next, I know you don't believe that, but I want to go on to Matthew Dowd.
Sorry to laugh.
It felt like every Facebook page that your mom follows, every sports fandom whose team was doing terribly, and every well-intentioned social justice warrior was creating their own spin on Make Blank Great Again. Some were using it as an easily digestible form of protest, others were doing it just to be funny. But what ultimately happened was it served as an infinite source of free advertising for Trump 2016, and that four-letter phrase is now synonymous with 21st century American society. I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, and I remember having a Make Carolina Great Again shirt. Clubs on campus would spin the slogan to help promote whatever event they were hosting. You don't see it as much anymore, but trust me, this shit was poppin' in 2015 and 2016. So why did people feel that what Bethesda was doing was anything different from the overpriced coffee shop down the street doing it? I think it mostly has to do with timing. When Donald Trump won the presidential election in 2016, a lot of people were shocked. Trump's victory was a major vindication for his voters, and they started showing their ass right away. It was the ultimate I told you so moment that made the Democratic Party look like losers and forced the Republican Party establishment to get out of the way of the new MAGA leadership. Trump supporters had their guy in the White House. They no longer needed to play nice with the opposition. But by the time this ad came out, we were roughly 10 months into Trump's term. Why did people even care that Trump's catchphrase was being used when it was as much a pop culture reference as it was a political one? If you're familiar with the controversy, you've probably seen this video. The piece features journalist Dexter Thomas visiting the Bethesda offices to speak directly to the team about the backlash the game was receiving from Trump supporters.
A lot of companies would say, back away from it, please buy our game.
Well, there's one main difference between us and our game and everything else, which is the game's about Nazis. Unless you're a Nazi, there should be nobody who is opposed to the idea of being against Nazis.
I find this video to be the definitive documentation of the Make America Nazi Free Again controversy. Plenty of people were sharing their thoughts online, but not everyone had direct access to ask Bethesda what their thought process was. Vice News and Dexter Thomas did have that access, and it allowed the rest of us to get some fascinating insight from Bethesda leadership, who spoke pretty candidly. It also has nearly 1.4 million views, a 36% dislike ratio, and a treasure trove of comments. Since Vice's video was a big inspiration to make this video, I wanted to see if I could learn anything new 7 years after it was uploaded. Why did Bethesda stand their ground? Why not take an easier path and not even touch quote-unquote real-world politics? So I decided to reach out to Dexter with some questions, and fortunately, he was kind enough to hop on a call.
Bethesda's a business, Machine Game, the studio, they're a business, and they are going to make decisions that make sense from a business perspective. Expecting a company to do what is right, or even stick to some kind of ideology or whatever, I don't think that's going to get you very far. I think they realized that there would be some people who might get upset at their marketing, but that group of people wasn't influential enough to matter. The sort of person who gets really, truly, deeply offended when they see a sign or an ad that says "Make America Nazi Free Again," the kind of person who gets angry at that isn't somebody that a lot of people follow. It was a gamble that they were willing to take because it felt, and I'm guessing here, it probably made the game feel more urgent and real, and thus more just relevant to what a gamer might be interested in doing.
I totally agree with Dexter here. Bethesda was taking a calculated risk to get more eyes on the game and determined that they could withstand any sales they'd be losing from people who got in their feelings about an ad saying Nazis are bad. Okay, but I still wanted to know why the response was as loud as it was. If you look hard enough, there's some group upset at some new game every day of the week. But this was different. I mean, a news show on HBO, such as Vice News, isn't going to cover every game that gets a few bad Steam reviews. Wolfenstein's controversy was clearly making enough noise that it couldn't be overlooked. I mentioned timing earlier in reference to the game releasing less than a year after Trump's upset victory. But I think the timing goes deeper than that and more tragic.
Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, it shouldn't matter. Like, everybody should be unified in that against those particular folks.
On August 11th and 12th, 2017, white supremacist and neo-Nazi groups converged on Charlottesville, Virginia for what was called the Unite the Right rally. You've probably seen some pretty famous photos from this event of a bunch of white men carrying tiki torches during a night march. But this was more than a march, it was a powder keg. I won't spend too much time on the event itself, but it is important to note that it did end with lots of people injured, and one counter-protester, Heather Heyer, died after white supremacists drove his car into a crowd. Charlottesville was a flashpoint moment for America. Do you feel like that event had any direct influence on how they marketed the game?
Of course. Yeah. I really don't think you can overstate how much things changed after that. Maybe they didn't change, but I think some people became much more aware that the actual hate, the actual white supremacy, all of this stuff was a lot more serious than they had been willing to consider before that. But that being said, for people who paid attention, I think there is something of a before and after.
Put all this together, bottle it up tight, shake it around with a little bit of Diet Coke and Mentos, take off the lid. That's what I think led to the controversy surrounding Wolfenstein's marketing. It wasn't just the parody of President Trump's MAGA slogan that lit the fuse. It was the fact that America was still reeling from Charlottesville. Voters on the left and right circled the bandwagons accordingly back then, and whatever political tension had subdued since the election was fired right back up to a fever pitch. In my opinion, had this ad campaign been launched a year or two later, any vocal opposition to it would have been way smaller. I believe that the 2-month proximity between Charlottesville and Wolfenstein is the factor most responsible for the outcry being as loud as it was. I posed a theory to Dexter during our chat about the direct influence the Unite the Right rally may have had on Bethesda's marketing team. I think there's a scenario where they had a marketing campaign lined up, and then the Unite the Right rally happened in August.
I fully believe, and I think it's a very good theory, that they probably had something else lined up before Charlottesville happened, and then happens, and then somebody probably said, you know what, this is getting a lot closer to reality than we actually thought. Let's just instead of ignoring it, let's lean into it. I wonder if I asked that. Yeah. If we don't have the footage for it anymore, the footage is on a hard drive somewhere in Brooklyn, God knows where.
Prior to meeting with Dexter, I tried to do the best internet sleuthing I could to dig up posts from 2017, showing what ordinary people not in the games or journalism professions were saying about Make America Nazi Free Again. For that, I went to the bastion of cordial dialogue and intellectual conversation: Reddit. It would have been impossible to archive every single comment on the subject, so I focused my efforts on the more populated threads. From there, I found 10 users who had made comments that, in my perspective, seemed to criticize Bethesda's campaign and sympathize with those who felt they were being unfairly labeled a Nazi. And then, I messaged them. I asked them 5 main questions. If they had played the game, if their opinion that Bethesda was intentionally equating Trump voters to Nazis had changed, why they felt the ad was so controversial back then, if they had thoughts on some other Wolfenstein ads that appeared to reference politics with phrases such as very fine people and there is only one side, and lastly, who they voted for in 2016, 2020, and will vote for in 2024. Of the 10 Redditors I messaged, 4 saw it. Of those 4, only 1 provided a response. That response, in summary: yes, this user played the game. Generally, they thought it was all right and had some fun with it. They still believe that, yes, the Make America Nazi Free Again ad was a clear slight towards Trump supporters and was calling them Nazis. This user believes that the ideology of the American far left is the dominant ideology in mainstream media, and anyone who has views to the right of that gets unfairly labeled as a Nazi. They don't remember having seen the other ads upon release, but looking at them now, they probably would have had a similar belief that, quote, the marketing was just run by political zealots trying to push a narrative, unquote. And lastly, this user has been on the Trump train since it left the station and has no plans of hopping off. Please keep in mind that this is purely anecdotal evidence, and that is an extremely small sample pool of one. Those 9 other Redditors had left comments in 2017. It's totally possible they're no longer active on that account, they've since changed their views, or they simply didn't feel like responding. This certainly isn't something to write a doctoral thesis about, but hey, I've got 16 subscribers. I'm just using the tools available to me, folks. I told Dexter about my findings, if you can call it that, to see what he thought about my little experiment. I scoured Reddit to find people that left comments in 2017, and I messaged them. I was like, hey, do you still feel like this? And I've only got one person to respond, and they said, yeah, I'm still,
Really?
This was bad. I thought that was interesting too, that seems like something that someone would kind of grow out of.
It is a good question. I mean, again, it's a small sample size, but it could be that some of the 10 have, as you said, grown out of it, or they've decided that Trump has gone too far. That is interesting.
So, do I think Bethesda was calling Trump voters Nazis? Absolutely not. I think they intentionally baited the exact crowd they wanted with the absolutely perfect formula, and they fell for it hook, line, and sinker. The game is about Nazis. The ad is about Nazis. I think a person that could misconstrue this as being about Trump or Republicans is someone who is projecting political insecurities onto the world around them. I don't think anyone can put it better than Bethesda's Pete Hines did in the Vice video.
Make America Nazi free again, or not my America. Basically, it sounds like, okay, are we talking about Trump here?
We're talking about Nazis.
You're kind of poking the hornet's nest here.
Maybe a little bit, but the hornet's nest is full of Nazis, so fuck those guys. Like, I'll poke a Nazi hornet's nest.
If I had to bet my home on it, I'd say that there would be a not insignificant number of people who were upset about the ad in 2017 but no longer take offense to it. The 2016 election and the Unite the Right rally were extremely polarizing times in American society. And I think we're still seeing the impact of that with how sensitive everyone is to perceived political or social missteps from the quote-unquote other side. I think a lot of people simply got caught up in the emotional frenzy following Charlottesville. And for those backing Trump, taking out their anger and frustration on a video game was a low-stakes catharsis. Are there Nazis and white supremacists in America? Always has been. It's as American as apple pie. Do those Nazis support Donald Trump? Yup. But to dismiss and demean anyone who votes for Donald Trump as a racist or white supremacist is wrong. That exact type of chastising from Democrats is a large part of what gave Trump the White House in 2016. His supporters spun those attacks as proof that the other party was too snooty, too elite, didn't care about them, and didn't want them. So the only home they had left was with Donald Trump. I personally disagree with nearly everything Donald Trump says and believes. And I also personally believe that the overlap of bigoted Americans who support Donald Trump is not just some wacky coincidence. However, I also believe that overlap is not 100%, and acting as such is what pushes people on the fringe further down conspiracy rabbit holes and emboldens the type of people who would feel comfortable marching in a Unite the Right rally. As for Wolfenstein 2 and the new Colossus, I loved my time with it and recommend everyone give it a try. I found the characters and acting to be excellent, the art direction to be beautiful, and the linear gameplay style to be rewarding. And my favorite part of the game, the story, which is delivered as a piece of fiction but has more than its fair share of moments that hit close to home.
I think the game is going to make just about everybody a little bit uncomfortable. And I think that's what maybe the people who kind of knee-jerk got upset about the ad didn't realize. Is basically the equivalent of, I don't know, reading a headline and getting mad about an article that you haven't read. Yeah. They got something for everybody. Like they kind of come at everybody a little bit. And how you feel about it, that obviously is up to you. But I don't think they are just poking the hornet's nest of the extreme right or the alt-right, as they used to call themselves. It's not just that. They got stuff to say about America in general, which I think is what makes it an interesting game.
With the North Soul, these Richmond, north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Want to know what you think.